Now, let me dive into this a little more. Oxford University did a very interesting study a few years ago on the jobs that are most likely going to be disrupted from AI. And
Okay.
for the most part, when you look at the list, you go, if you understand AI, it makes perfect sense. There's a few on there that don't make any sense, like roofers and welders. And I was like, help me understand this. It turns out we have never been, first of all, home construction industry doesn't adopt technology. That's one
Too
problem,
expensive in most
among
cases.
other things, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened is what turns out roofing needs a certain amount of human judgment to build the roof, place the shingle, and all that. Now that the machines can actually combine the visual acuity that humans normally have and the manual labor, we don't need roofers as much. So some of this stuff is really interesting. There's two other important things around this that we don't want to lose. You mentioned adoption. There are lots of studies. I use some of these slides that say famous person said something silly and this happened, right? There is only need for 100 personal computers by the CEO of IBM.
I remember that. Yeah.
Einstein came out and said nuclear weapons cannot exist. Learn to regret that. We'll never have a need for flight, right? We see these kinds of things. What's happening, and this is the dean of Whiting School of Engineering at Johns Hopkins has this. He did this analysis. It shows that these famous smart people are still being wrong, but they're finding out how wrong they are faster
Yes.
because it's evolving at such a rate. And the amount of the adoption cycle is shorter than we've ever seen when we talk.
It's incredible. You look at, there was a chart on how quickly ChatGPT got to 100 million users versus how long did it take a cell phone to get to 100 million users versus how long did it take a car to get to 100 million.
It took I think it was the camera took 70 years to gain widespread adoption, right? ChatGPT 48 hours, something like that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
So
it's
I
truly
think
amazing.
that the pace, we just can't imagine the amount, anything that's involving, again, consciousness, it's not going to get replaced. So artists, I think that's a tough one, even though people look at all these models, these AI models out there. But when you look at a piece of art from a Van Gogh, there's something, there's a emotional response when you see it. And that can only be created by another human being who understands what it means to be a human being, right? And same thing happens in music. I mean, there's so many places we can pick those kinds of things that you're not going to replace Albert Einstein with machine learning.
No, and I think there's two parts to that. One is when I look at a beautiful piece of artwork or listen to a beautiful piece of music, there's an emotional side that says, boy, that person has talent that I don't have, right? And there's an impressive piece to it. The other one is you bring up a very important point, and it's actually referred to as model collapse because as these models grow and they're used more and more, they they become more generic and more neutral. They've never had passion, but they really kind of lose the the sense of being human. If you use some of these tools like plagiarism and all,
Yeah.
you find that now they all have these AI indicators. And basically, they're looking for they're asking the question, would a human actually talk like this?
Yeah.
So it's actually called model collapse, but you bring up an excellent point. It's, it's, it's never going to go away.